Well, g'day and welcome back to the shed. And what I've got today is this Kriesler model 11-7. Not an uncommon radio in Australia. It was made in Sydney. Radio Museum says from 1946, but I believe they had a fairly long model run and there were a number of different variants with different valves or tubes. Depending, I guess, on availability in the post-war era, it would have been difficult to get parts consistently. This doesn't look like a bad example, apart from being very dusty and the Bakelite is quite dull. But the tortoiseshell grill on the front, which is usually broken on these models, is intact and maybe crazed a little bit, but I should be able to get that looking good. And the Kriesler badge is perfect, so I'll have to be careful not to break that. Apart from that, the dial's intact and it's glass, so that's nice. No sign of the letters peeling off or anything like that. But I have no intention of powering this up before I've had a good look at it, because it hasn't been plugged in apparently for a very long time. Another thing that concerns me is looking down the grill here at the speaker. There's a bit of a rat's nest down there and I'm a bit concerned for the welfare of the speaker. May have been eaten by mice or rats. I don't know how they would have got in there, but I think we've got some promising material to work with anyway. So hopefully it'll come out well. I thought before I go opening it I'd give the cabinet a bit of a wipe over just to give me some idea of what it's like inside, and it hurts to look at it as it is. I'm hoping that most of this is dust, and yeah, we are seeing some nice colour in here. It has the inevitable paint spots. Every Bakelite radio you ever get has paint spots on it. I guess that's because they have spent some time in sheds and that's what happens. Now I'll just turn it around and give the front a gentle wipe. And look at that grill, that's going to be fine. Have to be very careful not to break this though. I'll clean it up properly of course later. Now that is dulling off a lot as the water dries on it. This is just a damp cloth. Well, that'll do that for now. I think the next thing is to well, take the bottom of it and have a look at what we've got in there. I suspect it hasn't been recapped or had any work done to it, but I don't know yet. So let's have a look at that. Well, I've got it upside down. It's a heavy little unit. Now, I have heard that these radios were marketed as a sealed unit to retailers. That is, they had a seal on the screws underneath, which was essentially tamper evidence, so they could tell if an owner had pulled it apart and attempted to repair it themselves, thus voiding the warranty. There's no sign of any seal or anything in there, so I'm suggesting that this radio has been opened at some stage. They also used to have, I believe, felt feet underneath in these round recesses, and they've gone as well. I can probably replace them with something suitable. Okay, so may as well take it off and see what we've got inside. They come out fairly easily. They're probably the original screws. I would hope so. They're a bit rusty, but they'll come up okay. With a bit of a soak in vinegar and perhaps a coat of lacquer to stop them from rusting again. That said, they look like just common wood screws. Perhaps they're not original. Well, let's see what we got. We've got these two filter caps, 16 microfarads each, and it's fairly low, but I think it has a choke coil rather than a dropping resistor on this. Any number of these little Ducon paper caps None of them look like they've lost their guts or overheated or anything. They don't look too bad. They will of course all be leaky, but nothing in there is ringing alarm bells. These 16 microfarad smoothing caps, the insulation in the end of that looks really bad. I'm also guessing that this volume pot may have been changed at some point. It looks more modern than the rest of it, and the soldering on it's a bit messier too. This 3-position switch here, I'm guessing might be tone. I also noticed it has these bizarre clips. These are just a spring arrangement, captures the end of the wire in it, much like a speaker terminal. And I don't know, but my guess is that that might run to the output transformer. And up the other end of the chassis we've got obviously the wave or band switch, and we've got 2 pairs of coils there, oscillator and aerial coils, and 3 little trimmers there. So I'd say it has a single shortwave band and medium wave band. Now I'll just brush some of the cobwebs out, and then we'll see if I can take the top of the cabinet off and see what we've got there. I think I would want to recap it before I power it up, although none of the paper caps, I don't know, you never know with paper caps, they will be leaky of course. Whether they're terminally leaky or not is another matter, but I think I would at least change those filter caps before I turn it on, and we'll have a look at the grid coupling cap for the output tube as well before I turn it on. And then we might try it and just see what we get, depending on what I see after I take the top off as well, and of course and after checking the transformer. So from what I can gather, the top of the cabinet must unscrew from here, and there's one of these screws missing, so that tells me that someone's been in here at some point, maybe many years ago. I don't know if I'll be able to find a replacement screw for these. I can possibly come up with something like that. Pity when you find parts missing though. I had hoped that this radio would be untouched. Of course that's a lot to hope for something that was made in the mid-1940s. Gee, it's 10 years older than me, so that's got to be absolutely ancient. Now, I noticed that there are slots in the bottom of the cabinet here, which will allow the knobs to just come out with the chassis. I don't know if there's anything else that needs to be removed. There is a piece of dial cord though hanging out here, so that's not very promising. Alright, let's see what we've got. Let's see if I can lift it out. Yes. But the speaker's attached. That's why those odd connectors. There. Alright, so in fact what I might do is snip them so I don't get the wires mixed up. It will undoubtedly become obvious where they go later on, but at the moment I'm groping around in the dark a little, so I don't want to leave anything to chance. Okay, I just clipped these wires off so I can, leaving a little bit of coloured insulation there so I know where they went. And I'll make some room to put it on the bench so I don't drop the cabinet. And out it comes. Just having a quick look at the speaker, and it doesn't look to be totally eaten out. I'll have to pull it out and see what we've got there though. Those papers and stuff in there worry me a bit. And the chassis looks pretty rusty and pretty ordinary, I'd have to say. Let's have a look at the tube lineup. It might tell us a bit more about which variant of this we have. The sockets are a little bit stiff. There we go. And after all that, I cannot read anything on that. The valve diagram on the back here though says that this should be a 6SA7 and this should be a 6SK7. Well, I guess I'll have to sooner or later, so I'll just very gently try and remove this. And it's not... Yeah, it is coming out. Ah, 6SK7 GT mini watt. Yeah, so I guess that this is grounded to one of these pins, and just that the adhesives come off. It may be perfectly alright. And next we should have a 6BD7. And there it is, 6BD7. And the chassis has a hole punched in it for the larger octal base type valve. And next along we have allegedly a 6M5, and yes, that's what it is. And an EZ82. EZ82, that's something I don't think I've come across, and I certainly don't have a spare one, so I hope it's alright. Roller HT choke. Oh, okay. 10 volts, 100 cycles per second. DC resistance 350 ohms. Well, that's handy information. I'll see if it checks out. The label's rather loose, but it doesn't otherwise look to have been molested. And judging by the deposit on the top of it, the mains transformer is original. I don't think that's been changed any time recently. No obvious signs of anything amiss there, but of course you don't know until you check it. And gee, there's a lot of rust in the chassis. That'll be rat urine or mouse, something like that. Okay, so I've connected the meter across the very dodgy looking pins with the power plug. Gee, look at that. That's a real mess. I'm not going to do much with this, but I just thought I'd see what we get. So turning it on, we should see the primary. I'm not seeing anything. Is it open? I'll give up on that because the pins of this plug are too dirty to give me a proper reading. So ignoring the cord, I'll put it on here and here, and there we go. Operating the switch should turn that off. Yes, it does. Oh, hang on, that switch is maybe not. Yeah, I think this power switch here is possibly a bit dodgy. Or maybe it's my meter lead. There we go, anyway. So we've got a touch over 50 ohms on the primary. I haven't zeroed this meter, of course, so it could be anywhere. I'll do that and have another look at it. Alright, so now we might have a better show. And that looks more like 60 ohms there now. 60, 63, 65. Which looks healthy enough for the primary. I'll just make sure there's no continuity to ground here. Nothing on the primary is grounded. Okay, so I can probably pick up the secondaries coming into the rectifier tube here and just have a look at across them as well. Okay, I've switched to this one. Funny how all the batteries on all your meters go flat at the same time. But anyway, so this is a EZ82 rectifier, and the anodes are on pin 1 and 7. So looking at pin 1 and waiting for the meter to sort itself out. That says 0.504K. Why it doesn't just say 504 ohms, I don't know. But 503 on that side, and pin 7 over here, 479. So that looks healthy enough. Solder splat just sitting in here. Someone's been in here. Let's see what we have between them. That might tell me something. 0.717K between them. Alright, so centre tap to ground might have some resistance there. Well, that looks like that's healthy enough. I'm almost tempted to plug it in. One thing that's stopping me is that plug. I'm not plugging that into anything. The rest of the mains cord though looks okay. So I might just re-terminate this plug and we'll put a new plug on it. I will probably ultimately put a new cord on it, so I may as well do that now. There's not much point in mucking around, and I'll earth it at the same time. I think before I plug it in I'd better change these electrolytics. So I don't have any 16s unfortunately, so I'm going to put a couple of 24s in there. I think it should still be alright, and that's going to come out with a bit of persuasion. That's the groundy side of it. I guess this would be the centre tap, and the wiring to that isn't that good. It doesn't look falling apart, but I think I might put a bit of heat shrink over it just the same. Yeah, that doesn't look very good, does it? Okay, just put a bit of heat shrink on it there because there's a bit of exposed wire, not that it would touch anything. And now the other one. That should come out. Now this is quite a mess of wires in there, so I'm just going to do a pigtail onto that. I'm not going to try and re-solder the joint because I make a mess of it. Okay, that will be all right. Right, now I've got the big iron out for this. That should do the trick. Well, that's the two electrolytics replaced. I'm obviously going to have to replace all of these as well. But to power it up on dim bulb, I think that's all I need to do with the chassis for now. The other thing I need to do is get the speaker out of the cabinet, and hopefully it's not too chewed up by mice. Judging by the mess of papers and stuff inside the grill, I'm not very hopeful for the condition of this speaker, although it looks pretty good from the back. Who knows what's on the front. This, of course, is the famous Kriesler triple throat design, which was nothing more than a cheap marketing idea. The thing has 3 grills in it, but it still only has one speaker, and it's mounted kind of diagonally across 2 of the grills. In fact, the front grill, the nice tortoiseshell one, only just leads into the side of the speaker, the edge of it. I doubt if it had any effect whatever on the sound. That said, it's a decent sized speaker, a reasonable sized cabinet. It probably does have quite a decent sound, but I doubt if any of that's attributable to the triple throat concept. Not even a particularly attractive advertising slogan, really. Triple throat, it sounds like some dreadful medical condition. Anyway, let's see what we got. Oh, that's not good. I don't hold up much hope for that. The voice coil being free. The cone itself, though, is not too bad. I'll try and clean out that middle and see if there's any hope for it. I'm just removing the grill cloth here. That's certainly seen better days. I don't know how all that stuff got in there. Might be salvageable. I don't know. Well, I've patched up most of the holes. This is using pieces of old speaker cone, and it looks pretty messy, but I think it might work as far as that's concerned. But it is still scraping a bit, and I've cleaned out as much as I can with a vacuum cleaner and bits of paper and whatever. I think it might be perhaps a little bit of rust or corrosion. There's a rusty spot just there on the outside of the pole. So what I'm doing, I'm going to cut a piece of wet and dry emery paper, and I'm going to try and work that down around between the coil and the pole, and it shouldn't be too hard to get down there. Just pull the cone forward, and I'm just going to work it up and down while moving it around. I think this might be the most likely place for the rust, because it's this is the surface that most of the crud has landed on. It was down like that, and the angle of this speaker in the cabinet, of course, lends itself to all kinds of stuff getting into the speaker, and if that little felt pad goes in the middle, it all ends up down the guts. So I'll just go over that section again. Right, so there's nothing obvious on the paper, but let's just see how it goes now. Here's hoping. A little bit. No, nothing. Nothing. How's that? I might just suck that out with a vacuum cleaner though. Beautiful, beautiful. I can just see sunlight through one little spot here that I missed, so I'll put a bit of VL, liquid electrical tape, on that. I'll probably take care of that. Now I would be the first to admit that that looks horrible. After I've cut, oh well, actually before, I'll put something to cover that, and I'll just give it a light spray of black paint. It'll help to reinforce the cone as well. Okay, so I've hooked the speaker up to it. Those little spring clips are actually quite handy. So nothing left for it. I may as well just put it on dim bulb and see what we get. Okay, I've grafted a temporary cord onto that. On dim bulb, set up. I can't think of anything else, so let's just see what happens. Oh, and the dim bulb's doing what it should have done. It actually lit up temporarily and then went out. And I'm just waiting for it to come back up again. If it does, there's not much happening. I can see heaters in a couple of the tubes, and we've got a dial light, so at least we've got that happening. Oh, we have crackles. Crackles from the volume control. No stations though. No sign of a station. We may not have an oscillator or something, I don't know. I don't know about the wave change switch either. I'll try. Ah! We're getting very weak reception there. It doesn't seem to be anything shorting, so I'll take it off dim bulb just briefly.
Still failing by 1 with 7 wickets in hand. Genuine grind.
Okay, I'll go back to dim bulb. That was the tone control I just touched. Obviously very dirty.
Not fine, but really arrived perhaps. There's a dive, there's an attempted save. Nathan Lyon can't haul it in.
7 and similar conditions suspect.
This seems to be picking stations up right across the dial. Nothing down there anyway. That'll be news radio. 720, the local ABC.
Very well, thank you. What have you made of so far in this test, the opening 3 days?
And it's after 10, so Macca will be finished. That'll be 720, sorry. That one there will be 810, Radio National. And up here we've got 6IX and 6PR somewhere.
Services, Melbourne, and a 24/7
Anyway, that's pretty good news. Obviously I'll recap it all and clean it up, and that's probably all that'll be needed. Obviously I have to restring the dial as well. Okay, well I don't know what to do with this radio. I'm halfway through the recap and I plugged it in to test it and it was working fine. I came back into the shed today, plugged it in, turned it on, and I'm getting very low volume. That's full on AM. I don't know what's going on with it. None of the other switches seem to make any difference. So there's obviously a problem somewhere. But in any case, I'm going to have to leave it there and come back on with the next episode, and we'll find out what's going on with it, and hopefully get it back and working, and back in its case and back to its owner. So we'll catch you then.